Okay, so the topic today is aging and some misconceptions, and I might even go so far as to say myths as associated with it. So what inspired this was I was talking with a client earlier this week, and we were going over goals and what it was that he wanted to accomplish and what was important to him that he got out of health and fitness and what he got out of life. And one of the things that was most important to him, the way that he phrased it was as he went through life, what he wanted to do was the bend slope. So he wanted to age on what he referred to as the bend slope. And so him referring to it as the bend slope made me, it really hit me and struck me just like how much this is just a misconception that really just permeates our culture. And so, essentially what the bend slope is a conversation that I've had with him before, and I've had with a number of clients. Where anytime we go over this, is that there's a misconception that as we age, we lose our physical fitness and our physical abilities and our capabilities, and we pick up all these aches and pains and injuries and so forth, and that so the result in our physical capacities is as we age, we decline like this. And I think the reality is from simply just the fact that we're just getting older, that decline is a lot more like this. So it's a lot less drastic of a slope. What people think is that as you get older, you basically go like this. And I think that, again, the reality is that if we are doing the right things over time, that slope is a lot less drastic. So why is this a misconception? Why do people have this feeling that like aging just basically means that like you decline and you just like lose a whole bunch of abilities and oh, it's just a part of getting older? I think the first one is it's really easy for people to just feel it. So if you just think of the general population, most people have not been regular exercisers prioritizing their health and their wellness over an extended period of time. And so certainly they get older, they pick up injuries, those injuries and pains, and they lag on for a bit. And as you continue to get older, you pick up more of them and more of them, more of them, and all of a sudden you can't do the stuff that you did when you were in your 20s. I think another reason is that, I mean, it really just permeates our culture. So the individual feels it, but then they look around and it's really what's happening to most people, right? Most people move quite differently in their 50s than when you look around at people in their 20s. Most people move and just physically operate much differently. And then the issue with that, though, is that we're not really comparing, maybe it's like an apples to apples comparison. We're not really like putting things into context, right? And so what people think is this just has to do with getting older. When in reality, much of it has to do with, okay, you're now 20 years older, 30 years older, 40 years older. What did you do over those 10, 20, 30, 40 years? And so really aging, it's more just like a factor of time. So if you were someone who was somewhat active maybe in high school and maybe you did some stuff in college and then you got a job and you got kids, it kind of fell by the wayside. Maybe you started exercising a bit and then stopped, start and then stop, start and then stop. Next thing you know, you're 55. Well, looking over the course of your life, as far as like doing good maintenance on your body and taking care of your health, we're now looking at 35 years of not doing that, and maybe a couple of years when you were a kid, and 10 years at most, maybe, of doing that. So certainly one of those is going to be much more impactful and influential to how you feel right now. And again, it permeates our culture. Most people are falling into this same pattern. And so there's just this idea of you get older, this is what happens. Again, that's where we get this really extreme sort of like, oh, I'm in my 30s, it's not the same as when I was in my 20s. Oh, I'm in my, 50s is not the same when I was in my 20s. I'm in my 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Um, so I think another reason that that people uh, uh, fall into this way of thinking is if anybody pays attention to sports and athletes, in the vast majority of sports, what is the age range that is setting all of the records, and when are athletes considered old? In most sports, they're setting their records in their 20s, maybe their early 30s. There's exceptions. Gymnastics is younger, and then there's some sports that actually tend to lend themselves to people being a little bit older. But the reason that that happens is because there is an effect of aging. And then with a lot of sports too, another thing is sports provide a lot of opportunity for extreme wear and tear on your body. I forget the name of the physical therapist, but there's a physical therapist, I remember saying this, and he made a really great point. Exercise, good for your health. Sports, bad for your health. So there's two things going on with athletes and why you see that decline. And when they're, in a lot of sports, they're like, early 30s, mid 30s, they're considered like the old person who like should really consider retiring, and they can't, perform like they used to perform. One of them is the wear and tear that's just with that much exercise, and not exercising for health, but exercising to like push the extremes of the body, and the performance does provide a lot of wear and tear. The other reason is that this decline is occurring as we age. But athletes, when we think of like particularly high-level athletes, they are so close to their potential. So if we say that, let's say someone's absolute potential is up here in terms of performance, right? They have done so much training and focused on it so much that they are like up here, right? They, with every athlete's goal is to absolutely maximize their genetic potential and get up to here. Well, if where you're operating is so close to your genetic potential, you're going to see that decline over time, right? Where the vast majority of us are, because we're not just dedicating our entire lives to being the absolute best athlete we can be when, no other job and so forth, where most of us are is we have our genetic potential up here and we're somewhere down here. So the point of that is that is one of the reasons that space that we have between our genetic potential and what's happening as far as the aging process goes, that you can see. And in my world, which is not the normal world, right? Those of us who like we value our health and fitness and exercising regularly across our culture, that is not the norm, right? It is not abnormal for me with my clients and just being in this field and seeing other people with their clients, for people to be in their 50s and then all of a sudden be in the best shape of their life. For somebody to be in their 60s and they've never been able to do a chin-up before, and they can do a chin-up. To be in their 70s, and man, I've always dealt with knee pain every single time I squat, and now they can sit down in a chair and stand up and they don't have knee pain. Like, those things are not like these extreme rare things. The reason that can happen is because so many people, their absolute performance and health and wellness potential is up here, are operating down here once they get into their mid to later 20s and 30s and beyond, right? They start prioritizing other things. Is that, yeah, there's this decline, but they've been operating down here, right? And so even though they're aging and there's this slope of declining, they can actually see improvement through the decades. So it's a very, I think, unfortunate thing that people think that aging is this thing that just forces so much decline on us in terms of our physical health and wellness, just because it's not the case. It's just not true. Yes, there is a decline in with respect to aging. That absolutely happens, and as you age, there are things that you need to pay more attention to than you did when perhaps you were younger. Recovery is one of the big ones. Typically, as you age, you can't recover as well as you did when you were younger. there are certainly some things that go on there. But again, the point here is that decline for the vast majority of people in terms of their potential and what they can achieve is a very slow decline over the decades. And if where you've been is operating down here, like if in terms of doing all of the right stuff when it comes to exercising, and you're exercising right, and you're exercising with good targets, and you're doing that consistently, and you're not starting exercising and stopping exercising and starting exercising and stopping exercising. If you get, pain and injury, you deal with it instead of ignoring it. You take care of all those things. You do the right type of maintenance. Then what you're going to see if, whenever you start, when you're 30 or 40 or whatever, is that you're going to be able to see improvement. And it's not just one of these things where, oh, I got older, I'm falling apart. So anyways, if anybody has any questions about that, let me know. The main thing that I just wanted to get with this was it really struck me that this was called the bend slope. And I just wish that more people, that this was just, more a part of our culture, that taking some time for ourselves to make sure that we are healthy and that we are well, what will allow us to do is to get more out of life for a much longer period of time. And I feel like the general conception in our culture with regards to aging is defeating and detrimental, and I think it makes it ultimately harder for people to start making the right changes and to be consistent with them. So again, I really want the idea of the bend slope, right, to not just be the bend slope. I want that just to be, that's what happens as you age, is people just understand that and know that yeah, there is a slow decline as you're aging. The vast majority of us, we're not professional athletes. What that means is we can keep improving our health and fitness and certain performance metrics for a very long time. And certainly if it's not something that has been a huge priority for somebody, it's not a crazy thing for somebody to be in their best shape when they're in their 50s and their 60s or 70s and do things that they weren't able to do in their 30s. So anyways, that's the video. Let me know if you have any questions.